Hey, good morning, BC. Dave here. Woke up this morning and was watching, there's a channel on YouTube called Action Kid, and he was in Boston for some reason, and sort of interesting videos that he has. He just walks around towns. He's from New York City, one of the boroughs of New York City, but he was just walking around in Boston. I guess he's down there on a vacation or something. And I've never been to Boston, but I thought it was really interesting. Boston looks like a really nice town, the area he was in. And so, yeah, I watched some of his videos this morning. But I got on here today. Carm showed a Gorvo 31 showed a video of back album covers, and I've always been interested in album covers and how they tie into the music. Sometimes really hitting close to what the music kind of reminds me of. But I got this book here. It's by Michael Oakes, and I love books like this that have a lot of artwork in them and stuff. And it starts from the early days of rock and roll, and kind of goes on up through the 60s and 70s and so forth. But yeah, pretty neat book if you're into album art. So I thought I'd show some album art as well. Carm on his video showed the back of the album covers, which I've got a few that I can show like that too, but I also included just a few pieces of album art that, because I couldn't really find enough, I don't think, to pad out the video completely, were just album covers. But so here's one. This is John Fahey's Railroad. Acoustical guitars. There he is standing in the middle of the tracks. Which you shouldn't do. You never know when a train might come. I like the back of it though, which is this piece of artwork here. Kind of reminds me of something like Grandma Moses, although I don't think she did this. Her artwork is a little bit more primitive than this is here, but I do like the way they are showing the railroad going through the countryside. And John Fahey on Sanchez Records. Bob Dylan, Infidels. I like the back of it. This rough sketch of two people, a couple. It always kind of appealed to me, even though it is really rough. And I kind of wonder if Bob Dylan didn't do that. It may even say so in the album notes, but yeah. This is Humble Pie's third album, I believe, and it's just self-titled. This cover on the front is by a British artist, Audrey Beardsley, and he's from the 1800s, and a lot of his art is sort of like this. Kind of reminds me of fairy tales, but he often described his artwork as being decadent, and along those lines, but always like his line work. And then the back is also a British artist from the 1800s. This is George Frederick Watts, and the title of it is called Hope. And I like both artworks pretty well. Of course, Humble Pie was a band that had Peter Frampton in it, guitarist Peter Frampton, and also, oh golly, they had a really good lead singer that I always liked in it, which was Steve Marriott. Yeah, he was also in the Small Faces. I always like this album cover by Pat Metheny Group called American Garage. There you have air streamers on the front. And on the back, I like how they are showing them in a garage somewhere. And you know, very typical of American life, I think, the way that a lot of bands got started in the garage. I know I kind of knew several garage bands in the small town I was from, and that's kind of where they all got their start, until they could afford some place that they could, you know, play. But a bunch of bands get started in the garage. This is Iron Butterfly's Metamorphosis album, which is their last album, I think. And I always like this album cover depicting a cradle on one side. It's a wooden cradle, and the grave on the other, depicting, you know, human life cycle, I guess you could say. But yeah, always like this album here. A lot of people didn't like their singer, who I think is was Ron Bushy was his name, but it didn't bother me at all. But yeah, I always liked the back of it here. It's just a painting, you know, very lovely painting, colorful. It's the Fabulous Thunderbirds out of Austin, and it's called TBird Rhythm. And I like the red car on it, you know, a lot, which is a Thunderbird, I believe. On the back, it's the same car. And then you've got all these little pointers going to the car. And it says stuff like 285 horsepower, Super V8, 9.1 compression for a top premium gasoline 4-barrel carburetor, deluxe antenna, functioning air scoop right here. This is, says on the back, it says this is a 1957 Type 40 Thunderbird. Of course, there the guy is in the back of the rumble seat. But yeah, what a nice car, huh? Car culture. This is a Miles Davis Live Evil album, and the artist is a famous artist that's done a lot of album covers for other people, like John Hassell, and he did the art for Santana's Abraxas, among a bunch of other ones. His name is, I may mispronounce his last name, Matty Clarwin. Anyway, this album was recorded in the Cellar. It's a live and studio album. It was recorded in the Cellar in Washington, D.C. And Miles Davis asked Matty, he said he just wanted something on the front cover depicting life, and on the back cover depicting live, and something on the back cover depicting evil, which is this here. And Matty said he was going through a something like a magazine of the day, and found a picture of J. Edgar Hoover and made a frog out of him, which is this here. And evidently Miles liked it. The frog on the cover always reminded me of Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars, the Star Wars franchise. But yeah, I really like both sides of it, actually. It's Live Evil. David Grissom's Dog Music, or Dog Jazz. Kind of a folk or a bluegrass type style music with jazz in it as well. Kind of a hybrid, I guess you could say, of bluegrass. But yeah, I like his music quite a bit. And I like the little dog on the back with his cowboy hat and red bandana. And I guess this is a ukulele maybe, or a, oh golly, maybe not a ukulele. What is this? I can't think of the name of it. Possibly one of y'all will know. But yeah, cute little dog. Mandolin, I think that's what that is. This is a Steve Tibbetts. I don't know if that's pronounced year, right here, Y-R. But when I first saw this album cover, I was just like kind of in a trance over this cover here. It's looks like a broken up castle that the ages of time has just dilapidated, and it made me wonder, you know, where the castle came from and when it was built, who built it, you know, all those sorts of things out here in the middle of the country. And it doesn't say on the album cover where this is. I don't know if it's England or Scotland or possibly some other European locale. But I really like the album cover. This is Tibbetts on the back. It's all instrumental album. He kind of plays a fusion type jazz, I guess you could say, with sort of ethnic undertones or tones to it, hybrid music of jazz. He plays a guitar, kalimba, and synthesizer. Mark Anderson is on here, plays the conga, drums, and percussion. And then you have two different tabla players, one on side one and one on side two. And then Tim Weinhold plays the bongos, bass, and bells. But yeah, this is Steve Tibbetts. This is Henry Cow from England, kind of a rock and opposition band. I always like the album cover. I like the back too, though. It's just kind of an artwork, kind of a collage artwork with these stamps. I guess they're stamps. They may be something else, but sort of an interesting piece of artwork that they put on the back of it. Henry Cow is made up of several British guys. I always liked Fred Frith was a guitarist, and there's several other people that have been in the British scene, but yeah. This is XTC's album Go To, which is just text. And so is the back. Of course, it's got their picture on it right here. And then the right here is a song, name of the songs. This kind of reminds me of old advertising for some reason, because I took some advertising courses in college, and one of the sort of not rules, but one of the things that about copywriting or writing copy for ads and stuff is or design, I'll put it that way. One of the things about designing something for advertising is if you can get the customer to pick up your product, whatever it is. It could be a book, a magazine, or even a can of soup, or whatever. If you can create a good enough piece of artwork for that product, and the consumer picks it up, then they're pretty close to buying it. And this text here is just kind of a little bit of a hoax, I guess you could say, because it starts out, this is a record cover. This writing is the design up on the record cover. The design is to help sell the record. We hope to draw your attention to it and encourage you to pick it up. When you have done that, maybe you'll be persuaded to listen to the music. In this case, XTC's Go To album. then we want you to buy it. You know, it's just kind of a odd sort of propaganda, sort of parody of the, you know, that whole thing. But yeah, pretty interesting album by XTC. This is Rolling Stones, Some Girls, and of course it has a die-cut cover on the front with weird artwork where the Rolling Stones have kind of morphed into all these, there's Charlie Watts, to these sort of women, I guess you could say. Maybe the Rolling Stones were wearing wigs and stuff and dressed up for this thing. But pretty colorful. But yeah, die-cut cover, and then on the back it's like old advertising out of a catalog or something like that. Some Girls. This is Doug Somm's Groover's Paradise. Doug Somm was out of Austin, and this album came out in 1974. And I always thought it was a real neat depiction of Austin, actually, back in that time. Today, Austin has grown exponentially and is a lot larger city now. But way back then, you know, it was a lot smaller and seemed smaller than, well, it was always a large city, but it had kind of a smaller town feel to it back then anyway. I think where this jukebox is where the Capitol is kind of located, and it's kind of looking south. It's got a lot of like Austin type things on it about, you know, tacos. It's got Oats here, which I think was Oat Willie's kind of a, you know, headshot back then. Kind of done in a Furry Freak Brothers style. He was the guy that did that, Gilbert Shelton. The actual album art is by a guy named Carry On, which I think is just a pun on words. Kerryawn, Carry On. But yeah, this kind of reminds me of Austin a lot back then. And the back, it's got two members from Creedence Clearwater Revival on it too, Stu Cook on bass and Doug Clifford on drums as well. But Doug Somm has a lot of different albums, and I like, you know, all the ones that I have. I don't have all of them, but this is one of my favorites by him. It's kind of bluesy, I would say, but and also very kind of Texas, the flavor of Texas, I'd say. So yeah, there's a few of them to add to the album cover thread. Thought I'd come on here and show a few albums and talk about album covers and stuff. Hope everybody's doing well, getting along, and be happy.